The champagne glass shattered against Italian marble, and Evangeline Winters tasted blood. She didn't remember
Please
falling to her
forgive me.
knees,
I forgive you.
didn't
Come
remember the
here.
crack of
It's all
Vivienne
right now.
Beaumont's palm across her face, though her cheek burned like
I
fire,
have something
and her
for
left
you.
ear rang with a high,
It's
thin whine.
beautiful.
What she
It is for
remembered
you.
was the silence that
Thank you.
followed 200 people in designer gowns and custom tuxedos, frozen mid-conversation, champagne flutes, suspended halfway to lipsticked mouths, all staring at the girl on her knees in the service corridor of the Charleston Country Club. The girl with champagne soaking through her second-hand black dress. The girl with a split lip bleeding onto white marble. The girl who had committed the unforgivable sin of existing in Vivienne Beaumont's presence without permission. "You stupid, clumsy bitch." Vivienne's voice cut through the silence like a razor through silk. She stood over Eva, resplendent in ivory Valentino, her blonde hair swept into an architecture of pins and spray that probably cost more than Eva earned in a month. "Look what you've done to my dress. Look at it." Eva looked. A single drop of champagne, no bigger than a dime, stained the hem of Vivienne's gown. One drop. Eva had spilled an entire tray trying to avoid Vivienne's deliberately extended foot, and the woman was concerned about one drop. "I'm sorry, Miss Beaumont, I didn't." The second slap came harder than the first. Eva's head snapped to the side and she tasted copper. Her vision swam. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard gasps from the ballroom entrance. Witnesses. Always witnesses, but never help. "Don't speak to me." Vivienne's heel clicked against marble as she circled Eva like a predator. "Don't look at me. Don't breathe the same air as me, you disgusting little parasite. Do you know what this dress cost? Do you?" Oh, Eva knew. $43,000. She knew because she had picked it up from the boutique herself last Tuesday, carrying the garment bag with both hands like it was made of spun glass, while Vivienne sat in the car texting and didn't say thank you. Eva knew the cost of everything Vivienne owned. She had to. Companions were expected to know. Companions. That was the polite word, the word used in drawing rooms and charity functions. The word that made slavery sound respectable, that made 3 years of unpaid servitude sound like an honor. Eva was a companion the same way a prisoner was a guest of the state. "Clean it up." Vivienne gestured at the champagne spreading across marble, at the shattered crystal glittering like diamonds in the light of the chandelier. "Now, with your hands, I want to watch you grovel." Eva's fingers trembled as she pressed her palms against cold marble, as she swept glass shards into a pile, while champagne soaked through her stockings in the knees of her dress. The silence had broken now. Whispers rippled through the crowd gathering at the ballroom entrance, whispers that sounded like laughter. "Poor thing. I heard her father killed himself. Gambling debts. Vivienne's mother took her in out of charity. This is how she repays them. No breeding. You can always tell." Eva kept her eyes on the floor, on the champagne and the blood, her blood from her split lip mixing together in pink pools between white tiles. She had learned not to cry. Tears only made Vivienne cruel. Footsteps approached, men's shoes custom Italian leather, stopping 3 feet from where Eva knelt. She didn't look up. Looking up without permission earned punishments. "That's enough." The voice was low, rough, with the weight of gravel in winter. A voice that didn't ask, a voice that expected to be obeyed. Vivienne's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Excuse me." "I said that's enough. Step away from her." Now Eva looked up. The man standing between her and Vivienne was tall enough that she had to crane her neck to see his face. 6'2", maybe 6'3", broad through the shoulders, in a way that suggested he earned the muscle rather than bought it from a personal trainer. His suit was simple, charcoal gray, well-tailored, but understated, and he wore it with the casual indifference of a man who owned better clothes and didn't care. But it was his face that made Eva's breath catch. A scar ran from his right temple, down across his cheek to his jaw, thick and silver against sun-darkened skin. Not a neat surgical scar, a violent scar. The kind that came from metal and glass, an impact the kind that rewrote a face into something harder, colder, more dangerous. His eyes were blue pale, cold blue, like winter sky before a storm, and they studied Vivienne with the detached interest of a scientist examining a particularly unpleasant specimen. "Do you know who I am?" Vivienne's voice climbed an octave. Around them the whispers intensified. "That's Dominic Ashford. Eleanor's grandson, the one who left. I heard he came back broke, failed in real estate, looking for his grandmother to bail him out." The man Dominic Ashford didn't acknowledge the whispers. His eyes never left Vivian's face. I know exactly who you are, Miss Beaumont. Senator's daughter, charity board member, collector of human beings. His gaze dropped to Eva, still kneeling in champagne and blood, then back to Vivian. I asked you to step away. She's my companion, my responsibility. I'll discipline her as I see fit. Discipline. Dominic repeated the word like he was tasting something rotten. Is that what we're calling assault now? Vivian's face flushed red beneath her powder. How dare you? How dare I interrupt you beating a woman half your size in front of 200 witnesses? Something that wasn't quite a smile touched Dominic's scarred mouth. You're right, how dare I? He turned his back on Vivian, a calculated insult that made her gasp, and extended his hand to Eva. His palm was scarred too, she noticed. Old burns maybe, or rope marks. The hands of a man who had worked, who had bled, who understood what it meant to kneel on marble while the world watched. Can you stand? Eva stared at his hand. Taking it felt like stepping off a cliff into darkness. Not taking it felt like drowning in champagne and blood and 3 more years of Vivian's cruelty. She took it. His grip was warm, steady, stronger than she expected. He pulled her to her feet with effortless strength, then released her hand immediately. No lingering touch, no presumption of ownership. Professional, almost military in its precision. Thank you, Eva whispered. Don't thank me yet. Before Eva could ask what that meant, Dominic turned and walked toward the ballroom entrance, toward the crowd of Charleston's elite drawn by the spectacle like moths to flame, toward the woman standing at the center of that crowd, silver-haired and iron-spined, watching everything with eyes as cold and blue as her grandson's. Eleanor Ashford, the Queen of Charleston, the woman who had turned Ashford Industries from a regional shipping company into a multinational empire. The woman who had buried 2 husbands and outlasted 3 governors and never ever forgave a slight. Grandmother, Dominic's voice carried across the corridor. I believe you're hosting a gala tonight. Selection night, isn't it? Eleanor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, concern, the look of a chess player who had just realized her opponent was 3 moves ahead. Dominic, how unexpected. I thought you were still in Atlanta. I came back early, heard you were hosting a wife auction, wanted to see it for myself. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eleanor's lips thinned to a bloodless line. It's not an auction. It's a gathering of Charleston's finest young ladies. An opportunity for you to meet suitable candidates for what? For marriage, for business mergers disguised as romance. Dominic's voice was cold enough to frost glass. You've rejected 10 women in my name in the past 6 months, grandmother. 10 daughters of senators and CEOs in old money families. I thought I should come see what standards you're holding out for. I rejected them because they weren't good enough for this family, for you. No, you rejected them because they weren't controllable enough, weren't desperate enough, weren't willing to sign their lives away to the Ashford name. Dominic's gaze swept the crowd, cataloging faces, measuring reactions. Tell me, grandmother, are tonight's candidates more desperate? More controllable? Eleanor's jaw tightened. Around them, society's finest shifted uncomfortably in their designer shoes. This was not how selection night was supposed to go. This was not polite. This was not done. If you've come to mock the process, you can leave. Eleanor's voice could have cut diamonds. I'm trying to secure this family's future. Something you've shown no interest in doing. You're trying to secure your control. There's a difference. The crowd parted. 4 young women emerged, each more beautiful than the last, each wearing enough diamonds to fund a small nation. The sacrificial lambs of selection night. The desperate, the ambitious, the hopeful. Eva recognized them, recognized their type anyway. Old money daughters with new money problems. Debutantes whose families needed Ashford connections more than the Ashfords needed them. Beautiful, accomplished, terrified women who had been trained from birth to smile and agree and never ever show what they really thought. Dominic. Eleanor's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Meet tonight's candidates. Miss Caroline Whitmore. Miss, no. The word dropped into silence like a stone into still water. I'm sorry. Eleanor's smile was a weapon. No, I'm not meeting them. I'm not interviewing them. I'm not playing your game, grandmother. Dominic's voice carried to every corner of the corridor, to every listening ear. You want me married? Fine. I'll marry tonight, right now. Eleanor's composure cracked for the first time in living memory. Tonight, don't be absurd. There are arrangements to make contracts to negotiate. I'm not negotiating, I'm deciding. Dominic turned his gaze, sweeping past the four candidates, past the crowd of witnesses, past Vivian still standing in shock near the champagne puddle. His eyes found Eva. Every nerve in Eva's body screamed at her to run, to disappear, to become invisible the way she had learned to become invisible over 3 years of servitude. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stand frozen as Dominic Ashford crossed the corridor in 4 long strides and stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell cedar and smoke and something metallic that might have been old blood, close enough that she could see flecks of gray in his dark hair, premature silver at his temples, close enough that she could see the scar tissue was thicker than she'd thought, raised and ropey, running from his right temple down to his jaw, the kind of injury that should have killed him. What's your name? His voice was quieter now, meant for her alone, though 200 people strained to hear. Evangeline. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. Evangeline Winters. People call me Eva. Eva. He repeated it like he was testing the weight of it. How long have you been Miss Beaumont's companion? 3 years. By choice. Eva's laugh was bitter as ash. No one chooses to be a companion, Mr. Ashford. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile. Too dark for that. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. The look of a man who had also been trapped once and remembered what the cage felt like. Then let me offer you a different choice. He pitched his voice to carry again, to reach every ear in the corridor. Marry me. Tonight, in front of all these witnesses. The corridor erupted. Gasps, shouts, Vivian's shriek of outrage cutting through the chaos like a knife. Eleanor's voice sharp and commanding, demanding order. But Dominic didn't look away from Eva, didn't acknowledge the chaos he'd created, just waited patient as stone for her answer. Eva's mind raced. This was insane, impossible. She didn't know this man, didn't know why he would choose her, the companion, the servant, the girl kneeling in champagne and blood 5 minutes ago. Didn't know what game he was playing or what he wanted from her. But she knew what she would be if she said no. She knew Vivian's cruelty would intensify, would sharpen into something murderous, because Ava had been noticed by someone Vivian wanted. She knew the next 3 years would be worse than the last 3. She knew she would break eventually. Everyone broke. And she knew, looking into Dominic Ashford's cold blue eyes, that he was offering her the only exit she would ever get. Yes. The word came out stronger than she expected. Steadier. Yes, I'll marry you. Dominic's hand closed around hers again. Warm, steady, real. Then it's done. The hell it is. Vivian pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. You can't marry her. She's nobody. She's nothing. Her father was a drunk who gambled away everything they had before blowing his brains out in a motel room. Her mother died cleaning houses for people who wouldn't spit on her. She's servant class Dominic. Trash. You can't. I can. Dominic's voice was ice. And I will. Unless you'd like to continue explaining to 200 witnesses how my choice of bride is any of your concern, Miss Beaumont. Vivian's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Around them, smartphones emerged from pockets and purses, recording, documenting, preparing to upload to social media the moment they left the building. The viral story of the year, the scandal that would fuel Charleston gossip for months. Eleanor stepped forward. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea for Moses. She was small, barely 5'4" in her heels, but she commanded the corridor with the presence of a general who had never lost a battle. Dominic, a word, in private. Anything you have to say, grandmother, you can say in front of my fiancé. The word fiancé hit the crowd like a physical blow. More gasps, more frantic typing on phones. Eva felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. This didn't happen to girls like her. Very well. Eleanor's eyes were chips of Arctic ice. You're making a mistake. A catastrophic mistake. This girl is completely unsuitable. She has no family, no education, no connections, no one who will control her. Dominic's grip on Eva's hand tightened fractionally. No one who will tell her what to think, what to say, what to feel. No grandmother arranging her life like a business merger. That's what bothers you, isn't it? That I chose someone you can't manipulate. Eleanor's composure never cracked, but her eyes went from cold to glacial. I'm trying to protect you. Protect this family. You've been gone 8 years, Dominic. You don't understand how things work here anymore. I understand perfectly. You want a puppet, a daughter-in-law who will smile and nod and let you run her life the way you've tried to run mine. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, grandmother, but that's not happening. He turned to Eva. Go get your things. We're leaving. I don't have things. Eva's voice was quiet. Everything I own fits in one bag in the servants' quarters. Something dark passed through Dominic's eyes. He looked at Vivian, still standing in her champagne-stained Valentino, and his lip curled. How very Christian of you, Miss Beaumont, taking in a destitute girl and working her like a slave for 3 years. I'm sure your father's voters would be fascinated to hear about your charitable work. Vivian went white, then red, then white again. You can't do this, she whispered. My father will. Your father is Senator James Beaumont. I know exactly who he is. Dominic's smile was a blade. I know a lot of things about a lot of people in this room, things that would be very interesting if they became public. So if I were you, Miss Beaumont, I would consider very carefully whether you want to make an enemy of me. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Vivian's mouth worked soundlessly. Then she turned and fled, her heels clicking against marble like gunshots. Eleanor watched her go, then turned back to Dominic and Eva. If you do this, there will be consequences. For both of you. I'm counting on it. Dominic released Eva's hand and offered his arm instead. More formal, more deliberate. A statement. Now, if you'll excuse us, grandmother, my fiancé and I have a wedding to plan. He guided Eva toward the exit through a corridor of staring faces and raised phones. Eva kept her chin up, kept her back straight, kept moving even though her legs felt like water and her palms were damp with nervous sweat. Behind them, Eleanor's voice rang out, cold, clear, a promise. Don't say I didn't warn you, Dominic. When this all falls apart, and it will fall apart, don't come crying to me. Dominic didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge her, just kept walking Eva on his arm until they reached the country club's grand entrance and stepped out into Charleston's heavy summer night. The valet brought a car around, not the Bentley or Rolls-Royce Eva expected. A Tesla, understated, practical. The choice of a man who had money but didn't need to prove it. Dominic opened the passenger door himself. No driver, no security, just the two of them. Eva hesitated on the curb. What just happened? You got out. Dominic's voice was matter of fact. You got out of hell and you're not going back. Why? The question burst out of her. Why me? You don't know me. Don't know anything about me except what Vivian said, and I know you were willing to kneel in champagne and blood while 200 people watched because the alternative was worse. I know you survived 3 years of whatever Vivian Beaumont calls charity. I know when I offered you a way out, you took it. His eyes met hers. That's all I need to know. Eva wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the steadiness in his voice, the certainty in his eyes. But she had learned the hard way that rescue always came with a price. What do you want from me? Right now, I want you to get in the car. We have a wedding to arrange. Tonight you were serious about that. Completely serious. There's a justice of the peace who owes me a favor. He'll marry us tonight with 2 witnesses and no questions asked. Eva's head spun. I don't understand. Why the rush? Why tonight? Dominic was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. The voice of a man choosing his words with precision. Because if we wait, my grandmother will find a way to stop it. She'll tie you up in legal paperwork, pay off your debts, make you sign contracts that trap you worse than Vivian ever did. Or she'll destroy you, dig up dirt on your family manufacture scandals, ruin any chance you have of a life outside servitude. He paused. Eleanor Ashford doesn't lose. Ever. The only way to beat her is to move so fast she can't counter. So we marry tonight before she can mount a defense. It made a terrible kind of sense. Eva had watched Eleanor operate for 3 years from the shadows of charity events and society functions. Had seen her destroy reputations with a word, end careers with a phone call, crush anyone who stood in her way. Dominic was right. If they gave Eleanor time, she would find a way to win. And after we're married, Eva's voice was steadier now. What then? Then we negotiate terms. But first we make it legal. Make it real in the eyes of the law and society. Make it impossible for her to undo. Eva looked back at the country club, at the golden light spilling from floor-to-ceiling windows, at the world of wealth and privilege and cruelty she was leaving behind. Then she looked at Dominic Ashford, this scarred stranger who had appeared from nowhere and offered her freedom with no explanation. It was a terrible risk. He could be worse than Vivian. Could be a monster hiding behind a handsome face and pretty words. Could be using her for reasons she couldn't even imagine. But Vivian was a known hell. This was an unknown possibility. Eva got in the car. They drove through Charleston in silence, past historic mansions and moss-draped oaks, past the waterfront where cruise ships blazed with light, past the market district where tourists wandered between vendors selling sweetgrass baskets and pralines. The city Eva had lived in for 3 years, but never really seemed too busy serving Vivian to notice beauty. Dominic drove with the casual confidence of a man who knew these streets, not fast, not showing off, just steady, deliberate progress toward whatever came next. "Where are we going?" Eva finally asked. "Ashford Manor, Eleanor's house. My house technically, though she's controlled it since my father died." "You're taking me to her house. It's the last place she'll expect. She'll assume we're running, hiding, going to a hotel or fleeing the city entirely." The ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "We're going to walk right into her stronghold and dare her to do something about it." Eva's stomach clenched. "That seems risky." "Everything worth doing is risky. Besides, the justice of the peace is meeting us there in an hour. By the time Eleanor gets home from the gala, we'll already be married." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it made Eva's skin prickle with unease. This man, this stranger, had his life planned out 3 moves ahead. Had anticipated Eleanor's reactions, countered her strategies, positioned himself to win before the game even started. What kind of man thought like that? What kind of man looked at a servant kneeling in champagne and blood and saw an opportunity? They turned onto a tree-lined avenue. The houses here were antebellum mansions, white-columned and elegant, separated by iron gates and manicured gardens. Old money, historic registry, the kind of neighborhood where presidents slept and Civil War generals plotted strategy and fortunes were made and lost over mint juleps on the veranda. Ashford Manor sat at the end of the avenue like a crown jewel, 3 stories of white brick and black shutters framed by oak trees older than the nation. Light blazed from every window, and Eva counted at least 6 chimneys piercing the slate roof. It was beautiful, imposing, the kind of house that made it very clear you didn't belong. Dominic pulled through iron gates that opened, automatically drove up a circular drive and parked in front of marble steps leading to a columned entrance. "Home sweet home." His voice was dry. "For the next 6 months anyway." 6 months. He cut the engine and turned to face her. In the darkness of the car, the scar running from his right temple to his jaw was a shadow and his eyes unreadable. "We need to talk. Before the wedding. Before you sign anything, you need to know what you're agreeing to." Eva's unease crystallized into fear. "You're going to tell me the catch now." After I got in the car, "The catch is that this isn't a fairy tale. This isn't rescue. This is a business arrangement, and you need to understand the terms before you commit." He pulled an envelope from the glove compartment. "These are the contract terms. Read them, all of them, then decide." Eva took the envelope with trembling fingers. The paper was expensive, heavy stock official looking. She opened it and pulled out a document. "Contract of marriage temporary arrangement." She read. Her fingers stopped trembling. Her breathing steadied. By the time she reached the final page, she understood exactly what Dominic Ashford wanted, and exactly what he was willing to pay for it. The contract was 6 pages of legal language, but the terms were simple enough that even Eva's exhausted champagne-soaked brain could understand them. 6 months, that was the timeline. 6 months of marriage, of public appearances as husband and wife, of playing the role of Mrs. Dominic Ashford for Charleston society in Eleanor's benefit. At the end of those 6 months, divorce, clean, quiet, no-fault dissolution, and $300,000 deposited into an account in Eva's name, plus full settlement of all debts owed by Silas Winters, her brother, the only family she had left in the world. Silas. God. She hadn't let herself think about him in hours, couldn't afford to think about him while she was kneeling in champagne, while Vivian's hand connected with her face, while 200 people watched her humiliation. But now in the darkness of the car, the thought of him crashed over her like a wave. 23 years old and drowning in debt he hadn't even accumulated himself. Debt that Vivienne's mother had manufactured, had fabricated out of thin air, and backed up with forged receipts and paid witnesses, all to ensure Eva's compliance. All to make sure Eva understood that running meant her brother went to prison for theft he didn't commit. $300,000 would erase that debt, would give Silas a future, would let him breathe for the first time in 3 years. The debt, Eva's voice cracked. Silas's debt. You said you'd clear it. How do you even know about? I know everything about you, Eva. Everything Eleanor knows, everything Vivienne knows, and quite a bit they don't. Dominic's tone was measured. I had you investigated the moment I saw you at the gala last month. The pre-event, the one Eleanor made me attend. You were serving drinks, and Vivienne was screaming at you about ice cubes. I thought it was interesting how you never flinched, never cried, just apologized and fixed it and disappeared. Last month. He'd noticed her last month. Eva tried to remember that event, but they all blurred together. 1,000 charity galas, 1,000 times serving drinks while invisible, 1,000 moments of survival. You investigated me. I investigate everyone. It's what kept me alive for 8 years in a business where most people fail in 2. He paused. Your brother didn't steal anything from the Beaumont estate. The receipts are forgeries. I have documentation proving it. The moment we marry, I'll have my lawyers deliver that documentation to the prosecutor's office. Case dismissed within 48 hours. Eva's palms went clammy. She pressed them against her dress. Why would you do that for someone you don't know? Because you need it. Because it ensures your cooperation. Because I'm not Vivienne Beaumont, and I don't keep people trapped with lies. His eyes met hers in the darkness. I want you to choose this, Eva. Choose it clearly with full understanding of what you're agreeing to. No coercion, no deception, just terms on paper and your signature at the bottom. Eva looked back at the contract, skimmed past the legal language to the heart of it. Party A, Dominic Ashford, requires Party B, Evangeline Winters, to fulfill the following obligations. Public appearances as spouse at minimum 2 events per week. Residence at Ashford Manor for duration of contract. Presentation as devoted wife in all social settings. Cooperation with media presence and photography. Party B will receive immediate settlement of all debts owed by Silas Winters. Monthly stipend of $5,000 for personal expenses. Complete wardrobe befitting Mrs. Ashford. Final payment of $300,000 upon successful completion of 6-month term. Additional terms. No conjugal obligations. Separate bedrooms. Privacy respected. Non-disclosure agreement regarding true nature of arrangement. Special clause. In the event that Eleanor Ashford or any Ashford Industries board member engages in illegal activity or gross misconduct, the board reserves the right to convene emergency vote on CEO appointment regardless of scheduled timeline. It was bloodless, clinical, a business transaction dressed up in marriage vows. But it was also honest. No pretense of romance, no false promises, no hidden clauses that would trap her later. Why 6 months, Eva asked. Why not a year? Why not permanent? Board meeting. Dominic's voice was controlled. My father died 6 months ago. Heart attack at his desk alone while I was in Atlanta closing a deal. Eleanor seized control of Ashford Industries before his body was cold. She's interim CEO, but the board has to vote on permanent appointment in 6 months. That vote happens December 15th. And you want to be CEO. I want to stop her from being CEO. There's a difference. Something dark moved through his expression. Eleanor built this company into an empire, yes, but she did it by destroying anyone who got in her way. Competitors, employees, family members. She burned my father slowly for 30 years because he wasn't ruthless enough for her standards. I won't let her burn anyone else. Eva heard the rage beneath his controlled voice. Old rage, deep rage, the kind that lived in bones and blood and waited years for the right moment to strike. So you need an unsuitable wife, someone Eleanor will try to destroy, and when she does, the board will see her as toxic and vote for you instead. That's the plan? I'm bait. Yes. At least he didn't lie. At least he didn't dress it up in pretty language and false comfort. Eva appreciated that more than he could know. And if she succeeds, if she destroys me so completely that the board doesn't care, she won't. I won't let her. Dominic's voice was iron. I've spent 8 years building resources, connections, leverage. I've been preparing for this fight since the day I left Charleston. Eleanor's good, but I'm better, and I'm more patient. Iva wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the certainty in his voice, but she'd learned the hard way that powerful people made promises they didn't keep. What happens if I say no right now? If I get out of this car and walk away? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. I drive you wherever you want to go, give you $5,000 cash to start fresh somewhere else. Make an anonymous call to the prosecutor's office about the forged receipts. You never see me again and I find another way to beat Eleanor. He would do it. Iva could hear the truth in his voice. He would actually let her walk away. That more than anything else made her trust him. Where do I sign? The wedding took 17 minutes. Ashford Manor's study was all dark wood and leather floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and oriental rugs that cost more than cars. The justice of the peace was a nervous man in his 60s who kept glancing at Dominic like he expected to be arrested at any moment. The two witnesses were Dominic's sister, Isla, 21, dark-haired, vibrating with barely contained excitement, and the Manor's head housekeeper, Mrs. Davis, who looked at Iva with something that might have been pity. Iva stood in the center of the room in her champagne-stained black dress, still wearing stockings, with runs in them, still tasting blood from her split lip. No white gown, no flowers, no music, just harsh lamplight and the smell of old books and the justice of the peace reading words from a printout because he hadn't thought to bring his official book. Do you, Dominic Ashford, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Evangeline Winters, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Iva looked at Dominic. At this stranger who had investigated her, chosen her, offered her escape with such cold calculation. His face was unreadable. His eyes were winter sky. He was absolutely serious about this insane plan. I do. The ring was simple platinum, no stones, clean lines. Dominic slid it onto her finger with the same military precision he'd shown pulling her to her feet in the country club corridor. Efficient, effective, emotionless. As the band settled on her finger, he leaned close. His voice was barely a whisper, meant only for her. This is temporary. Until we make this real, if we make this real, you deserve better than a placeholder. Iva's breath caught. Before she could respond, the justice of the peace was speaking again. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the... That won't be necessary. Dominic's voice was flat. Thank you, Judge Morrison. Your discretion is appreciated. The justice of the peace fled. Isla hugged Iva too hard, too enthusiastic, smelling of expensive perfume and champagne. Welcome to the family. Oh my God, Eleanor is going to lose her mind. This is the best thing that's happened in years. Isla, Dominic's voice carried a warning. Iva's exhausted. Let her breathe. Isla released her step and back-studied Iva with dark eyes too knowing for 21. You're braver than you look. Or crazier. I haven't decided which. Probably both, Iva said quietly. Isla laughed. It was a good sound, genuine. The first genuine sound Iva had heard all night. Mrs. Davis approached with a first aid kit. Mrs. Ashford, let me see to that lip. Mrs. Ashford. The name hit Iva like a slap. She was married. Actually married. To a man she'd met 3 hours ago in a puddle of champagne and blood. I'm fine, Iva started to say, but Mrs. Davis was already dabbing antiseptic on her split lip with gentle hands. You're not fine. You've been assaulted. Mr. Ashford, you should take your wife to the hospital. No hospitals. Iva's voice was sharp. No police reports. No official documentation. Please. Mrs. Davis's eyes softened with understanding. As you wish. But I'm cleaning this properly, and you're drinking water and eating something before you collapse. When did you last eat? Iva couldn't remember breakfast. Yesterday's breakfast time had become meaningless, somewhere between the first slap and the wedding vows. I'll take care of her. Dominic's hand settled on Iva's shoulder. Light, careful, no pressure. Thank you, Mrs. Davis. We'll be in the East Wing. The East Wing. Iva didn't know what that meant, didn't know the geography of this massive house, but she followed Dominic through corridors lined with oil paintings and antique furniture, up a curved staircase with a banister that gleamed like silk down a hallway, where her footsteps were swallowed by carpet so thick she felt like she was walking on clouds. He stopped at a door open. It gestured her inside. The bedroom was bigger than the entire servants' quarters at the Beaumont estate. King bed with a canopy, fireplace, sitting area with velvet chairs, windows overlooking gardens lit by moonlight, bathroom visible through an open door, all marble and gold fixtures. "This is your room." Dominic's voice was carefully neutral. "Mine is across the hall, locked from the inside if it makes you feel safer. No one will bother you here." Ava stood in the center of luxury and felt more lost than she'd felt kneeling on the country club floor. "I don't understand what's happening." "You're safe. That's what's happening. You're safe, you're free from Vivian, and you have 6 months to figure out what comes next." "Nothing is free. Nothing is ever free." "No," Dominic agreed. "Nothing is. You're paying with 6 months of your life. 6 months of playing a role enduring Eleanor's attacks, letting me use you as a weapon against her. But at the end of those 6 months, you walk away with enough money to start over anywhere in the world. That's the price. That's the exchange." It was the most honest thing anyone had said to her in 3 years. Ava sank onto the edge of the bed because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "Tell me the rest. Tell me what you're not saying. Why me specifically, Eleanor, will have a dozen other unsuitable candidates she could attack. Why a companion with no family, no connections, no—" "Because you survived Vivian Beaumont for 3 years." Dominic's voice was quiet. "Do you understand how rare that is? How many companions she's gone through in the past decade? 17, I checked. 17 women who lasted anywhere from 2 weeks to 8 months before breaking completely. One attempted suicide. 3 left Charleston and never came back. The rest settled for whatever scraps Vivian threw them and disappeared into obscurity. 17. Ava had never known, had never thought to wonder if she was the first, the only, the exception. "You didn't break," Dominic continued. "You bent. You survived. You kept your brother safe and your sanity intact, and you never once begged or groveled more than absolutely necessary. That's not weakness, Eva. That's steel wrapped in survival instinct. That's what I need. You need someone who's already broken in, already trained to endure abuse. I need someone who won't shatter when Eleanor comes after you, and she will come after you, hard, with everything she has." He paused. "I won't lie to you. The next 6 months are going to be hell. She'll investigate your family, manufacture scandals, try to make you so toxic that I have no choice but to divorce you early and lose credibility with the board. She'll attack your reputation, your history, your dead parents. She'll find every vulnerability you have and press until you break. And you'll just watch. No, I'll fight back. I'll protect you as much as I can. But some attacks will land. Some damage will be done. I can't stop all of it." His eyes met hers. "But I can promise you this, and at the end of 6 months, when we divorce, I will make sure you have every resource you need to rebuild whatever she destroys. New identity if necessary. New city. New life. Whatever it takes." Ava wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to go back 3 hours and make different choices. Better choices, choices that didn't end with her sitting in a stranger's mansion, wearing a stranger's ring, and agreeing to be human shield in a war she didn't understand. But there were no better choices. There had never been better choices. "I need to see my brother. Tomorrow. I need to tell him I'm alive and safe and—" "Already arranged. He'll be here at 9 a.m. I sent a car for him an hour ago. He's staying in the guest house tonight." Ava's chest tightened. "You brought Silas here without asking me?" "I brought him here because leaving him in that apartment made him a target. Vivian knows where he lives. She knows he's your weakness. The moment she figures out you're not coming back, she'll go after him." Dominic's voice was matter of fact. "He's safer here until we can get him relocated somewhere Eleanor can't reach him." It made terrible sense. It was also controlling and presumptuous, and exactly the kind of thing Vivian used to do, make decisions about Eva's life without consulting her, then present them as favors. "I'm not Vivian." Dominic's voice was quiet, like he could read her thoughts. "I'm not keeping your brother hostage. He can leave anytime he wants. But I strongly suggest he stays until we can ensure his safety. Everything you do is a suggestion that's actually a command. Yes, I'm working on that. 8 years of building a company tends to breed control issues." Something that wasn't quite a smile touched his scarred mouth. "You're welcome to call me on it. My sister does. Frequently." Despite everything, Eva almost smiled. Almost. Dominic moved toward the door, then paused. There's food in the kitchen. Mrs. Davis left a tray in your sitting room. Clothes in the closet. Isla's guess at your size. They'll do until we can get you properly fitted. He gestured at the bathroom. Everything you need is in there. Tomorrow we'll discuss strategy, public appearances, how to handle Eleanor. Tonight, just rest. He was leaving, actually leaving her alone in this massive room, in this massive house with no guards, no locks, except the one on her side of the door, no surveillance. Why are you being kind? The question burst out before Eva could stop it. This is business. You said so yourself. Why bother with kindness? Dominic turned back. In the lamplight, the scar running from his right temple to his jaw was a shadow, his eyes unreadable. Because you've had 3 years of cruelty, you've earned a little kindness. He paused at the door. Sleep well, Eva. Tomorrow the real fight begins. Then he was gone, and Eva was alone in more luxury than she'd seen in her entire life, wearing a simple platinum band that was meant to be temporary, married to a man who was either her salvation or her destruction. She didn't sleep. 3 days later, Eva walked into the Beaumont Foundation luncheon, wearing $5,000 of designer clothing and Eleanor Ashford's contempt like a second skin. The dress was Navy Isla's choice. Simple, elegant, expensive in the way only Charleston society would recognize. The shoes were Louboutin. The bag was Hermes. The jewelry was Ashford family pieces, sapphires and diamonds that had been sitting in a vault for 3 generations waiting for the next Mrs. Ashford to wear them. Eva felt like a fraud, looked like a princess, walked like a woman who knew exactly how many people wanted her to fail. The luncheon was at the Beaumont estate. Of course it was. Vivian's mother, Patricia Beaumont, had organized it to benefit the Charleston Women's Shelter. The irony of that, raising money to help abused women while her daughter committed abuse daily, was apparently lost on Charleston society. 80 women filled the garden terrace, picking at salmon and arugula salads, sipping white wine, discussing charity work and summer plans, and who was sleeping with whom. Eva recognized most of them. She'd served them drinks, carried their bags, been invisible while they gossiped. Now she was visible. Spectacularly visible. Every eye tracked her as she followed Isla through the crowd. Whispers erupted in her wake. That's her, Dominic's wife. I heard she was Vivian's servant. How much do you think he's paying her? Poor thing. Eleanor will eat her alive. Eva kept her chin up, kept her expression neutral, kept moving. Vivian materialized from the crowd like a viper striking. She wore white bridal, white virgin, white innocent white. Her smile was poison. Eva, how unexpected. I didn't realize servants were on the guest list. Every woman within earshot froze, waiting, watching, preparing to feast on whatever came next. Isla stepped forward, but Eva touched her arm, held her back. This was Eva's fight. Miss Beaumont, Eva's voice was steady, polite, the voice she'd perfected over 3 years of survival. Thank you for the invitation. Though I suppose technically it was addressed to Mrs. Ashford. I'm still getting used to the name. Direct hit. Vivian's smile went rigid. Yes, about that. Such a whirlwind romance. 3 years you worked for me, and you never mentioned an interest in my acquaintances. Then suddenly you're married to one of Charleston's most eligible bachelors. Curious timing. Love is full of surprises. Love. Vivian's laugh was glass-breaking. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I stand, it looks more like opportunistic social climbing by a desperate nobody who saw a chance to escape poverty and took it. Around them, phones were emerging, recording, documenting, preparing to upload the moment someone said something truly scandalous. Eva felt rage building in her chest. Hot, bright, dangerous. 3 years of swallowed anger threatening to pour out in a flood of words that would destroy whatever fragile social position she'd gained in 3 days of marriage. She swallowed it, pushed it down, smiled. I'm sorry I seem to have forgotten my manners. All that time working for you, I never learned how to properly insult someone at a charity luncheon. Would you mind demonstrating again? I want to make sure I get the technique right. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Nervous laughter, uncertain laughter, but laughter nonetheless. Vivian's face went red. How dare you? How dare I, what defend myself, exist in your presence? Without permission. Stop groveling. Eva's voice was still polite, still controlled. I'm sorry, Miss Beaumont, but I'm not your companion anymore. I'm Mrs. Dominic Ashford. And if you have a problem with my marriage, I suggest you take it up with my husband. I'm sure he'd be happy to discuss it with you. Vivian opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Eva smiled, turned, walked away. Isla caught up to her at the dessert table, eyes shining with delight. Oh my God, that was amazing. Did you see her face? I thought she was going to explode. I should have kept my mouth shut. Eva's fingers trembled. She pressed them against the table. I made an enemy. You already had an enemy. Now you have one who's afraid of you. There's a difference. Isla grabbed 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter, handed one to Eva. Drink, breathe, you survived round 1. Eva drank. The champagne was crisp, expensive. Nothing like the cheap wine Vivian used to make her serve at parties. She was savoring it when she saw the woman watching her from across the terrace. Eleanor Ashford, dressed in black, perfectly coiffed, eyes like winter calculating every weakness, cataloging every vulnerability, planning every attack. Their eyes met. Eleanor raised her champagne glass, a toast, a declaration of war. Eva raised hers back, held Eleanor's gaze, didn't flinch. Eleanor smiled. Then she turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Eva with the absolute certainty that hell was coming and coming soon. Your grandmother was here, Eva said that evening. Dominic looked up from the papers he'd been reviewing in the Manor's library. The room was his sanctuary, floor-to-ceiling books, leather chairs, a fireplace big enough to stand in. He'd been here when Eva found him working through acquisition reports like a man who never slept. I know, she texted me. Said you handled Vivian well but showed too much spine. She's concerned you'll be difficult to break. Is that good or bad? Good, it means she's taking you seriously as a threat. Bad because it means she'll escalate faster than I anticipated. He set the papers aside. Tell me what happened. Everything. Eva recounted the luncheon, Vivian's attack, her response, Eleanor's silent observation. Dominic listened without interruption, his scarred face thoughtful. You did well. Better than well. You took the high ground while still defending yourself. The phone's recording, did you notice them? Hard to miss. Good, that footage will be all over Charleston by now. Social media, group chats. Eleanor will have seen it. He stood moved to the fireplace, stared into flames that weren't lit. She'll be planning her counter, something to undermine your credibility, make you look mercenary or unstable, or she'll go after my family. Eva's voice was flat. That's what I'd do, dig up dirt on my parents, make me toxic by association. Dominic turned. Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or concern. Yes, that's exactly what she'll do. Then we need to prepare. Tell me everything you found when you investigated me. Everything Eleanor will find. For the next hour, Dominic detailed everything. Eva's father, James Winters, small business owner, gambling addict, who lost everything at the boats on the Charleston Harbor. Her mother, Sarah Winters, seamstress, who worked 3 jobs trying to keep food on the table. The house lost to foreclosure. The debts. The final night when her father put a gun in his mouth in a motel room off Highway 17 and painted the walls with his failures. Eva sat through it without crying. She cried those tears years ago. Now there was just cold rage and colder determination. What about my mother after my father died? Dominic hesitated. She worked as a seamstress at a dress shop in North Charleston, Eden Garden. Legitimate business owned by a woman named Margaret Thornton. Your mother was there for 2 years before her heart gave out. Probably stress-induced cardiomyopathy. She was 43. Eleanor will twist it, make it seem sordid somehow. Probably, the shop's in a rough neighborhood. Eleanor could imply prostitution, drug use, anything that sounds scandalous. Can you stop her? I can try, but Eva, if Eleanor wants to destroy your mother's memory, she'll find a way. All I can do is provide counter-evidence and hope the truth wins out. He paused. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. It wasn't. Eva wanted guarantees, wanted promises that the people she loved would be safe even in death, that Eleanor couldn't touch them, couldn't twist their stories into weapons. But life didn't give guarantees, only choices. Then we prepare for the worst. Eva's voice was steady. What's the worst Eleanor could claim about my mother? They spent another hour wargaming scenarios. By the time Dominic walked Eva back to the East Wing, it was past midnight, and her head hurt from too much information. At her door, Dominic paused. "You did well today. At the luncheon, standing up to Vivian. I was terrified. Courage isn't absence of fear. It's action despite fear." His eyes met hers. "You're stronger than you know, Eva." Something in his voice made her look closer, made her really see him for the first time since the country club. The scar running from his right temple to his jaw, yes. The cold eyes, but also the exhaustion around those eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself like a man who'd been fighting for so long, he'd forgotten what peace felt like. "Why are you really doing this?" Eva asked quietly. "The truth. Not the board meeting, not the CEO position. Why do you hate Eleanor so much?" Dominic was silent for so long, Eva thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She killed my father. Not with poison or a gun, with expectation, with contempt, with 30 years of making him feel like he was never good enough, never ruthless enough, never Ashford enough." His voice was flat. He died at his desk, alone, working late because he was afraid to go home and face her disappointment. I was in Atlanta when it happened, closing a deal I thought would finally make her proud of me. By the time I got the call, he'd been dead for 6 hours. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Be angry. Use it. Because Eleanor destroys everyone she touches, and the only way to stop her is to destroy her first." His eyes were ice. "That's what this is, Eva. Not business, not strategy. Revenge. Cold, calculated revenge. And you're helping me serve it." He walked away before Eva could respond, disappeared into the darkness of the hallway, leaving her standing at her door with his confession ringing in her ears. Revenge. That's what she'd married into. That's what the next 6 months would be. Eva went inside, locked the door, and didn't sleep again. 10 days after the wedding, the governor's charity gala turned into a war zone. Eva wore emeralds, Ashford family emeralds that Eleanor had specifically forbidden her to wear. Dominic had presented them that afternoon with a small smile and explicit instructions. "Wear them, make sure Eleanor sees them, watch her lose her composure." It was petty, childish, exactly the kind of calculated insult that would drive Eleanor to distraction. Eva loved it. The gala was at the governor's mansion, and Charleston's power elite turned out in force. Senators, CEOs, federal judges, people who shaped policy and made fortunes, and decided fates with phone calls and handshakes. Eva walked through that crowd on Dominic's arm, feeling eyes track the emeralds at her throat, hearing whispers about the nobody who'd married into Ashford money and now wore Ashford jewels like she had a right to them. Dominic introduced her to people whose names she recognized from newspapers. Governor Mitchell, Senator Beaumont, Vivian's father, who looked at Eva like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. Federal judges and business magnates and society matrons who smiled with their mouths and calculated with their eyes. Eva smiled back, shook hands, made conversation, played her role. She was good at it. 3 years of serving at Vivian had taught her to read it. People anticipate needs become whatever they expected. Now she used those skills to become Mrs. Ashford. Gracious, modest, intelligent enough to be interesting, deferential enough not to threaten. It was exhausting. 2 hours in, she excused herself to the bathroom, needed a break from performing, from smiling, from being watched. The bathroom was empty. Eva locked herself in a stall, leaned against cool marble, tried to remember how to breathe without being observed. The door opened, footsteps, heels clicking on tile. "I know you're in here." Vivian's voice. Of course it was. Eva unlocked the stall, stepped out, faced her former torturer in the bathroom of the governor's mansion. Vivian had been drinking. Eva could see it in her eyes, hear it in the slight slur of her words. She wore red tonight, blood red statement, red. Her makeup was perfect, but something underneath had cracked. "You think you've won." Vivian's voice was low, dangerous. "You think marrying Dominic makes you safe, makes you untouchable. I think I'm not your property anymore. You were never my property. You were my charity case, my good deed. And this is how you repay me, by humiliating me in front of the entire city." Eva felt rage rising, hot, bright. 3 years of swallowed anger demanding release. Repay you for what? For 3 years of unpaid servitude, for being slapped and screamed at and treated like dirt, for having my brother threatened with prison, If I dared complain, Eva's voice climbed. You want gratitude for being my jailer? I gave you a home when you had nothing. You gave me a key. Vivian lunged, grabbed Eva's hair, yanked hard enough that Eva screamed. Instinct took over. 3 years of taking abuse, of swallowing rage, of being powerless, exploded into action. Eva's nails found Vivian's perfect face. Raked down, drew blood. Vivian shrieked, released Eva's hair, swung wild. Her fist connected with Eva's cheek. Pain exploded white behind Eva's eyes. She stumbled back into the sink. Vivian came after her, both hands now reaching for Eva's throat. Eva grabbed the first thing she found, a decorative vase on the counter, heavy crystal, and swung. The vase connected with Vivian's temple, not hard enough to seriously injure, hard enough to stun. Vivian dropped, sat down hard on expensive tile, touched her head, stared at the blood on her fingers. The bathroom door crashed open. Security, governor's security, 2 men in suits with earpieces, weapons visible under their jackets. Step away from each other, now. Eva dropped the vase, raised her hands, her whole body shook. Vivian looked up from the floor, blood running down her face, and smiled. Victory in that smile. Calculation. She attacked me. You saw her. Assaulted me for no reason. I saw you grab her hair first, ma'am. The security guard's voice was flat. I saw everything on the hallway camera. You initiated contact. Vivian's smile died. The next hour was bureaucracy and chaos. Statements given. Photos taken of Eva's torn dress, her bruised cheek, the scratches on her arms where Vivian had grabbed her. Governor Mitchell himself appeared looking tired and disappointed and asked if Eva wanted to press charges. She didn't. Pressing charges meant police reports, media coverage, making this bigger than it already was. I just want to go home, Eva said quietly. Dominic materialized from nowhere. Suit perfect, expression lethal. He took one look at Eva's face and turned to the governor. Where is she? Being escorted off the property. Her father is not pleased. Good. Dominic's voice was ice. If she comes near my wife again, I'll press charges myself. Assault, battery, whatever sticks. He guided Eva out through a side entrance, away from the party, away from witnesses, put her in the car, drove in silence while Eva trembled and her cheek throbbed and adrenaline crashed through her system. I hit her. Eva's voice was distant, shocked. I actually hit her. You defended yourself. I could have killed her if I'd swung harder. You didn't. You used exactly enough force to stop her. Dominic's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I'm sorry, I should have anticipated this. Should have known Vivian would try something. How could you have known? Because it's what I would do. Back someone into a corner, wait for them to make a mistake, then use that mistake to destroy them. He glanced at Eva. The security footage will leak. Eleanor will make sure of it. By morning, everyone in Charleston will see you hitting Vivian with a vase. They'll say I'm violent, unstable. Some will. Others will see a woman defending herself against assault. He paused. The question is how we frame it, what narrative we push. Eva was too tired to think about narratives, too tired to calculate 3 moves ahead. She just wanted to sleep for a week and wake up somewhere Vivian Beaumont didn't exist. They pulled through Ashford Manor's gates, up the circular drive, into the garage. Dominic killed the engine, turned to face her. You were magnificent tonight, before the bathroom. The way you handled those introductions, those conversations. You're a natural. I'm a trained servant. I know how to make people comfortable. No, you're a survivor who learned to read people. There's a difference. His eyes were serious. Eleanor saw it too. That's why she'll escalate now. Because you're not breaking the way she expected. Eva wanted to laugh, or cry, or both. I'm terrified every second. Every smile feels like my face will crack. Every conversation feels like I'm one wrong word from disaster. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it paralyze you. He reached over very carefully and touched her bruised cheek. His fingers were gentle. Ice this. Take something for the pain. Tomorrow we'll deal with the fallout. Tomorrow, always the next crisis, the next battle, the next attack. Eva climbed out of the car on shaking legs, made it to her room, locked the door. collapsed on the bed, still wearing the emeralds, still wearing her torn dress, still trembling from adrenaline and fear, and the knowledge that she'd crossed a line tonight. She'd fought back, actually fought back, used violence against someone who'd tormented her for years. It felt like freedom. It felt like falling. She didn't know which terrified her more. 15 days after the wedding, Eleanor made her move. Eva was in the library when Dominic found her. She'd been spending time there finding comfort in the smell of old books and leather in the quiet that let her think without performing. Dominic's face was grim. He held an envelope. It started. Eleanor's first real attack. Eva set down her book. What did she find? She's claiming your mother was a prostitute, that Eden Garden wasn't a dress shop but a front for illegal services. She has witness statements, documents, photos, everything needed to make it look real. The words hit like physical blows. Eva's chest constricted. My mother was a seamstress. She was good. She was honest. I know. Eleanor fabricated this. Every word of it. But she did it well. Dominic's voice was measured. She's giving us 24 hours to quietly divorce before she releases this to the media. If we don't, she destroys your mother's memory and makes you toxic by association. Eva's vision blurred. Not tears. Rage. Pure, incandescent rage. She's going to lie about my dead mother. Publicly. Yes. Can we stop her? I'm trying. I've got lawyers working on it, investigators trying to verify if there's any truth to her claims. But Eva, it doesn't matter if it's true. Once Eleanor releases this, people will believe it. They'll assume there's fire under all this smoke. Eva stood, paced, tried to think through fury, her mother. Sweet Sarah Winters, who'd worked herself to death trying to give her children a future. Who'd never complained, never gave up, never stopped loving them even when their father destroyed everything. Who died at 43 with calluses on her hands and hope in her heart. Eleanor was going to drag her through mud, make her a punchline, destroy her memory for the crime of having a daughter who married the wrong man. I won't divorce you. Eva's voice was steel. I won't let her win this way. Eva, if we stay married, she'll release everything. Your mother's name will be destroyed. My mother was good. Everyone who knew her knew that. Eleanor can lie all she wants. The truth is still the truth. Eva turned to face Dominic. Unless you want out. Unless this is more scandal than you bargained for. Dominic crossed the room in 3 strides. Took her hands. His grip was warm, steady. I'm not going anywhere, but you need to understand what you're choosing. 24 hours from now, your mother will be headline news. Every terrible thing Eleanor's claiming will be repeated endlessly. You'll be hounded by media, by society, by people who believe the worst, simply because Eleanor Ashford said it was true. Then we fight back, find the truth, prove she's lying. It may not be enough, then it won't be enough. But I won't run. Eva's voice was breaking. I won't let her make me ashamed of my mother. I won't let her win. Dominic pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her, solid and warm and unexpected. Eva pressed her face against his chest and finally let herself cry. For her mother, for her father, for every choice that had led her to this moment, and for whatever was coming when Eleanor Ashford went to war. Dawn broke over Charleston like a wound, all red and raw and bleeding across the harbor. Eva stood at her bedroom door, suitcase packed, one hand on the doorknob, the other clutching a note she'd written and rewritten 6 times. She couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't watch Eleanor destroy her mother's memory. Couldn't stand in ballrooms while Charleston's elite whispered about Sarah Winters and her alleged double life. Couldn't pretend strength when she felt like glass cracked and ready to shatter. Running was cowardice. She knew that. But staying felt like suicide. Her hand turned the knob. Dominic stood in the hallway, still dressed from yesterday's suit, rumpled tie, gone shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't. His eyes were bloodshot, the scar running from his right temple to his jaw, more pronounced in the harsh morning light, but his voice was steady. Don't run. Words caught in Eva's chest. I have to. If I stay, Eleanor destroys everyone I love. My mother's memory. Silas's future. You. If you run, Eleanor wins. And I lose you. The words hung between them like smoke, heavy, significant, meaning more than either of them was ready to acknowledge. You barely know me, Eva's voice cracked. 6 months ago, you didn't know I existed. This is business, you said so yourself. Let me go. Find another way to beat her. There is no other way. There's only you. Dominic stepped closer, not touching, not crowding, just close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the desperation he was trying to hide. And you're wrong, I do know you. I know you survived 3 years of hell without breaking. I know you stood up to Vivian at that luncheon with your hands shaking but your voice steady. I know you fought back in that bathroom even though you were terrified. I know you're stronger than you believe. I'm not strong enough for this. Yes, you are. Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Isla appeared, laptop clutched against her chest, eyes wild with excitement or panic or both. I found something. She skidded to a stop, nearly dropped the computer, caught it at the last second. I found something about Eden Garden, about Eleanor's claims. Eva's heart lurched. What did you find? Isla thrust the laptop at them. On-screen property records. Business licenses, tax documents dating back 30 years. Eden Garden is a dress shop, was a dress shop in 1995 when your mother worked there. Is still a dress shop today. Isla's words tumbled over each other. It's owned by Margaret Thornton, same owner for 43 years. Legitimate business. No citations, no arrests, no connection to prostitution whatsoever. Eva stared at the screen. At proof her mother had been exactly what Eva always knew. She was honest, hardworking, good. Eleanor fabricated everything, Isla continued. The witness statements, the photos, all of it. And I know how she did it. She created a shell company 3 weeks ago, Eden Enterprises. Filed false invoices, created fake client lists, made it look like the dress shop was a front. But it's all recent, all manufactured. Dominic took the laptop, scanned the documents with the focused intensity of a man who'd built fortunes on reading contracts. Recognition flickered across his face. Margaret Thornton, I know that name. His voice was distant, searching memory. She's on the Thornwood Ball Committee. Old Charleston family. Eleanor's been trying to buy her building for years to develop the property. Thornton keeps refusing. She refused again last week, Isla said. That's what triggered Eleanor's attack. Thornton won't sell, so Eleanor tried to destroy the shop's reputation to force her out. Your mother was just collateral damage. Eva felt rage building, hot, bright, righteous. Her mother dead for 3 years, powerless to defend herself, dragged through mud as a weapon in Eleanor's real estate war. We can prove it, Eva said quietly. We can prove Eleanor lied. Better. Dominic's smile was sharp as broken glass. We can make her confess, publicly, in front of witnesses she can't intimidate or buy off. Hauptmann, the Thornwood Ball, tonight. Dominic handed the laptop back to Isla. 300 guests, Governor Mitchell, federal judges. The entire Ashford Industries Board of Directors. Eleanor will be there because she never misses an opportunity to hold court. We confront her there, expose the fabrication, let her destroy herself trying to justify the unjustifiable. She'll deny everything, Eva said. Probably, but Mrs. Thornton won't. She's been fighting Eleanor's development plans for a decade. She'll jump at the chance to prove Eleanor's dishonesty. Dominic pulled out his phone. I'll call her, explain the situation. Get her to bring her records to the ball. And if she refuses, she won't. Eleanor made this personal when she tried to destroy Eden Garden's reputation. Thornton will want blood. Isla was already typing on her laptop. I can create a presentation. Show the documents side by side. Eleanor's fakes versus the real records. Make it impossible to deny. Eva watched them work. Watched Dominic make calls with the calm authority of a man who expected to be obeyed. Watched Isla pull together evidence with the focused intensity of someone who'd been waiting years for a chance to strike at Eleanor. They were doing this for her, fighting for her mother's memory, risking Eleanor's wrath to prove Sarah Winters had been good. Eva's suitcase sat forgotten by the door. She wasn't running anymore. What do you need me to do? Her voice was steady, strong, the voice of a woman who'd decided to fight. Dominic looked up from his phone. Recognition changed his expression. Pride maybe, or respect. Get ready for war. The Thornwood estate blazed with light against Charleston's evening sky. Every window glowed. The garden sparkled with tiny white lights strung through oak trees and magnolias. 300 cars lined the circular drive, Mercedes Bentleys, Teslas, the kind of vehicles that cost more than most people earned in a year. Eva stood at the entrance in midnight blue silk Ashford diamonds at her throat and absolute certainty in her spine. She looked like she belonged, felt like a fraud, didn't care anymore. Dominic offered his arm. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. They entered the ballroom through tall doors that framed them like a painting. The crowd noticed immediately. Conversations paused, heads turned, phones emerged from pockets and purses preparing to document whatever came next. The ballroom was everything Charleston society aspired to be. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, French doors opening onto gardens where couples wandered between sculptures and fountains. A string quartet played Vivaldi. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres worth more than their hourly wage. Eleanor held court at the center of the room, surrounded by Charleston's power elite. She wore black, always black, like she was in mourning for everyone she'd destroyed. Her silver hair was swept into an elaborate updo. Her jewelry was discreet but devastating. Pearls worth 6 figures, a diamond brooch that had belonged to someone's grandmother. She saw Eva. Their eyes met across 50 feet of polished marble. Eleanor smiled, the smile of a predator who'd already won. Vivian stood at Eleanor's right hand. Her face had healed from the bathroom fight, but something in her eyes hadn't. She looked brittle, desperate, like a woman who'd bet everything on Eleanor's victory and couldn't afford to lose. Governor Mitchell was there talking with Senator Beaumont. Federal judges Eva recognized from newspaper photos. The Ashford Industries Board of Directors clustered near the bar, pretending they weren't calculating political advantage from every conversation. 300 witnesses, 300 phones ready to record. 300 people who would spread whatever happened here across Charleston by morning. Perfect. Isla appeared from the crowd carrying a small device that connected to her laptop. The ballroom has a projection screen. I can broadcast from anywhere in the room. Do it. Dominic's voice was quiet, lethal. Wait for my signal. Margaret Thornton materialized beside them. She was 70 if she was a day small and fierce, wearing emerald green and a smile that promised violence. Mrs. Ashford. She took Eva's hand, squeezed. Your mother was the finest seamstress I ever employed. She made wedding dresses that made grown women cry. She worked harder than anyone I've known, and Eleanor Ashford is a lying snake who's been trying to steal my property for 20 years. Words failed Eva. Her throat was tight with gratitude. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. I brought every record I own. 30 years of tax documents, business licenses, employment records. Everything needed to prove Eden Garden was exactly what it claimed to be. Mrs. Thornton's eyes glittered. Let's bury that witch. Dominic checked his phone. Board members are in position. Governor's watching. Judges are paying attention. He looked at Eva. Last chance to back out. Once we start this, there's no stopping. Eva thought of her mother, Sarah Winters, who'd worked 3 jobs and never complained, who'd loved her children fiercely even when their father destroyed everything, who'd died believing her daughter would have a better life. I'm not backing out. Then let's end this. They crossed the ballroom like soldiers marching into battle. The crowd parted. Conversations died. Every eye tracked their progress toward Eleanor. Eleanor watched them come. Her expression never changed. Perfect composure. Perfect control. The queen on her chessboard, confident in her victory. They stopped 3 feet away. Grandmother, Dominic's voice carried, pitched to reach every ear. We need to discuss the allegations you've made about my wife's family. Eleanor's smile was ice. This is hardly the place, Dominic. No, this is exactly the place. You made your accusations public. Destroyed a dead woman's reputation in front of all Charleston. Only fair we address them publicly. He gestured at the crowd. Unless you're afraid of what these people might learn. Eleanor's eyes narrowed fractionally, first crack in her composure. I have nothing to hide. Everything I revealed about Sarah Winters is documented fact. Witness testimony, financial records, photographic evidence, fabricated evidence. Eva's voice was steady, loud, the voice of a woman who had found her strength. You manufactured lies about my mother to force Margaret Thornton to sell her property. My mother was collateral damage in your real estate war. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones rose, recording, documenting. Eleanor's laugh was brittle. That's absurd. Why would I fabricate anything? Your mother's history speaks for itself. Then let's examine that history. Dominic nodded to Isla. The ballroom lights dimmed. The projection screen flickered to life. Documents appeared side by side. On the left, Eleanor's evidence. On the right, Margaret Thornton's records. Isla's voice rang clear. Eden Garden Dress Shop. Established 1982. Owner Margaret Thornton. Business license number 47-392-B. Continuous operation for 43 years. She clicked to the next slide. Employment records for Sarah Winters. Hired 1996. Position seamstress. Salary $12.50 per hour. Tax withholdings properly filed. Social Security contributions documented. The crowd pressed closer, trying to see, trying to understand. Now look at Eleanor Ashford's evidence. Isla clicked again. Eden Enterprises, shell company established 3 weeks ago. No physical location, no employees except on paper. Invoices dated years ago but filed last month. Witness statements from people who don't exist I verified. Social Security numbers belong to dead people or were never issued. Murmurs swept the room. Confusion, shock, dawning understanding. Eleanor's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. You're manipulating. I'm presenting facts. Mrs. Thornton stepped forward. In her hands, a banker's box full of documents. 43 years of running an honest business. Every tax return. Every business license renewal. Every employee record, including Sarah Winters' application filled out in her own handwriting. She pulled out a yellowed paper. See references. Previous employment. She listed her daughter Evangeline as emergency contact. Same address the Winters family lived at in 1996. Ava's vision blurred. That was her mother's handwriting. Careful. Precise. The handwriting of a woman who'd been afraid of making mistakes. Eleanor tried to buy my building last week, Mrs. Thornton continued. Offered twice market value. When I refused, she threatened to destroy my business's reputation. Make it impossible to operate. Force me to sell. She looked at Eleanor. You've been trying to push me out for 20 years. This time you went too far. The crowd was riveted. Senator Beaumont had his phone out, clearly texting someone. The board members huddled together, whispering urgently. Governor Mitchell's expression was carved from stone. Eleanor rallied. Margaret is lying. She's been part of this conspiracy from the beginning. She and Eva probably planned. I have recordings. Dominic's voice cut through her defense like a blade through silk. Conversations between you and your investigator, instructing him to fabricate evidence, telling him you didn't care if it was true as long as it destroyed Eva's credibility. He pulled out his phone, pressed play. Eleanor's voice poured from the speakers, crystal clear, unmistakable. I don't care how you do it, Kavanaugh. I want that girl destroyed. Dig up dirt on her family, her dead parents. I don't care if you have to manufacture evidence. Make it believable. Make it scandalous. Make it impossible for Dominic to stay married to her without destroying his reputation. Kavanaugh's voice. You're asking me to fabricate. I'm asking you to do your job, find weakness and exploit it. If there's no weakness, create it. The recording ended. Silence crashed over the ballroom like a wave. Eleanor stood frozen, every eye on her, every phone recording her shock, her exposure, her complete and utter defeat. You framed my mother. Eva's voice shook with rage. You lied about a dead woman who can't defend herself. You tried to destroy her memory because you couldn't destroy me. I was protecting this family. Eleanor's composure shattered completely. Her voice climbed. Desperate. Dominic merited a nobody, a servant, someone completely unsuitable for the Ashford name. I had to make him see. Reason had to show him what kind of stock she came from. Stock, Dominic's voice was ice. You're talking about human beings like they're livestock. Like my wife is a commodity to be evaluated and discarded. She is. That's exactly what she is. A gold digger who saw an opportunity and... No, the word cracked like a whip. She's a survivor. Someone who endured 3 years of abuse and came out stronger. Someone who faced your attacks with more dignity than you've shown in your entire life. Someone who is worth 10 of you. The board member stepped forward. Richard Harrison, chairman of the board, oldest member, voice heavy with authority. Mrs. Ashford, Eleanor, we need to discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. Eleanor's voice was shrill, breaking. I did what was necessary to protect. You fabricated evidence to destroy your grandson's wife. Harrison's voice was flat. You admitted it on recording. in front of 300 witnesses, including the governor of South Carolina and multiple federal judges. It was strategy business. It was fraud. Governor Mitchell stepped forward. His face was carved from granite. You suborned perjury. You attempted to destroy a private business through manufactured scandal. You defamed a dead woman who cannot defend herself. He looked at the state police officers stationed at the ballroom entrance. Officers, please escort Mrs. Ashford from the premises. There will be an investigation into these allegations. Eleanor's face went white, then red, then white again. You can't do this. I am Eleanor Ashford. I built this company. I built this family. You destroyed this family, and Dominic's voice was quiet, final. And now you're done. The officers approached, polite but firm. Eleanor looked around wildly, searching for allies, finding none. Every face showed shock, disgust, calculation about how to distance themselves from her scandal. Vivian tried to slip away through the crowd. Eva saw her moving toward the exit, head down, trying to disappear. Not so fast. Eva's voice stopped her. Vivian turned, fear naked on her face. You helped her. Eva pulled out her phone. I recorded you 3 days ago, talking to Kavanaugh on the phone. She pressed play. Vivian's voice crystal clear. Eleanor's paying you to destroy Eva's reputation, right? Mother said she'd double your fee if you make it really scandalous, something that ruins her completely. The crowd turned on Vivian like wolves scenting blood. Senator Beaumont's face went purple with rage. You knew, his voice shook. You knew Eleanor was fabricating evidence, and you helped. Daddy, Don't say another word. He looked at her with disgust Eva had never imagined seeing on a father's face toward his daughter. You're on your own. I won't have my name dragged through this scandal. He turned his back, walked away, left Vivian standing alone in the center of the ballroom while 300 people watched her world collapse. Eva felt no pity, only cold satisfaction. The board members surrounded Dominic. Harrison spoke for all of them. We need to convene an emergency meeting tonight. Per the emergency clause in our bylaws, when a CEO engages in illegal activity, the board can vote immediately. This situation requires immediate action. Agreed. Dominic's voice was calm, professional, the voice of a man who'd planned for this moment. Conference room at Ashford Industries. 1 hour. They left in a convoy. Board members, lawyers, Dominic and Eva. Behind them, the Thornwood Ball disintegrated into chaos. Guests clustering around phones, texting, calling, spreading the scandal across Charleston at the speed of light. Eleanor was escorted to a police car. Not arrested, not yet, but questioned, investigated. Her empire crumbling with every passing second. Vivian stood alone in the wreckage crying while her father's car pulled away without her. The conference room at Ashford Industries occupied the top floor of a glass tower overlooking Charleston Harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Leather chairs around a table that could seat 20. The board filed in grim-faced and silent. Eva sat beside Dominic, not speaking, barely breathing, watching Charleston's power elite decide her husband's fate. Harrison called the meeting to order. We're here to address the leadership crisis at Ashford Industries. Eleanor Ashford has been interim CEO for 6 months following the death of Richard Ashford. Tonight's events make it clear she cannot continue in that capacity. Murmurs of agreement around the table. The question before us, who takes control? Dominic Ashford is the logical choice, son of the previous CEO, proven business acumen, currently runs a successful real estate portfolio. However, his recent marriage has raised questions about his judgment. Eva's stomach clenched. They were going to use her against him anyway. Eleanor had lost, but her poison would linger. Dominic stood. I'll address that directly. I married Eva because she is strong, capable, and honest. Everything my grandmother is not. Eleanor tried to destroy her with fabricated evidence because Eva represented a threat to Eleanor's control. The board needs to decide, do you want a CEO who destroys anyone who opposes them, or do you want someone who values integrity over manipulation? Silence. Then Catherine Torres, the youngest board member, spoke. I've worked with Eleanor for 15 years. She's brilliant, ruthless, effective. She's also a tyrant who crushes dissent and punishes honesty. I've watched good people leave this company because they couldn't stomach her methods. She looked at Dominic. You're not your grandmother. That's why you have my vote. One by one, the board members spoke. Some praised Eleanor's business acumen while condemning her methods. Some simply acknowledged that fabricating evidence crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Harrison called for a vote. All in favor of removing Eleanor Ashford from all positions of authority and appointing Dominic Ashford as permanent CEO. So, 8 hands rose, immediate, decisive. Opposed 2 hands, Eleanor's oldest allies. But even they looked uncomfortable. Motion carries. Dominic Ashford is now CEO of Ashford Industries. Eleanor Ashford is removed from all positions effective immediately. Harrison looked at Dominic. The company is yours. Don't make us regret this. Dominic's hand found Eva's under the table. Squeezed. His voice was steady. I won't. They drove back to Ashford Manor in silence. Eva's fingers quivered in her lap. Adrenaline crash. Victory hangover. The knowledge that they'd actually won, actually beaten Eleanor, and the cost was still being calculated. You did it, she said quietly. You're CEO. We did it. Dominic's voice was tired. You stood up there and faced her. Told your mother's truth. That's what broke her. Not the evidence, not the recordings. You. Being stronger than she expected. Eva looked out at Charleston sliding past. The city where she'd been a servant, a victim invisible. Now she was Mrs. Dominic Ashford, wife of a CEO, victor in a war she'd never asked to fight. What happens now? Eleanor will be investigated, probably face fraud charges. Vivian's reputation is destroyed. No society family will touch her after tonight. Your mother's name is cleared. He paused. And you're free. Free. The word felt foreign. Eva had been trapped for so long she'd forgotten what freedom looked like. The contract, she said, 6 months. We're only halfway through. We can renegotiate, end it early if you want. You've fulfilled your part. More than fulfilled it. I'll give you the full settlement, regardless of timing. Eva was quiet. Outside Ashford Manor's gates opened. They pulled through up the drive into the garage. I don't want to end it early. Dominic turned to look at her. Eva, I want to finish the 6 months. See this through properly. She met his eyes. Unless you want out. Unless you got what you needed and... I don't want out. His voice was rough. I should. This was supposed to be business. Strategy. Revenge against Eleanor. But somewhere between the country club and tonight it became something else. Eva's heart hammered. What did it become? Real. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. Terrifying in its honesty. Dominic reached over, cupped her face with scarred hands. His thumb brushed her cheek. You were supposed to be a weapon, a tool I used to beat Eleanor. But you became the person I texted first when something happened. The one whose opinion mattered. The one I wanted to protect, not because it served my strategy, but because the thought of you being hurt made me want to burn the world down. Eva couldn't breathe. Dominic, I'm in love with you. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you stood up to Vivian at the luncheon. Maybe when you fought back in that bathroom. Maybe the moment you took my hand at the country club instead of running. But it happened, and now I don't know what to do about it. Eva kissed him. She didn't think, didn't calculate, just leaned across the car and pressed her lips to his and let 6 weeks of tension and fear and growing feelings pour into that kiss. He kissed back, gentle at first, then deeper. His hands tangled in her hair. Her hands gripped his jacket. They kissed like drowning people breaking surface, desperate and relieved and alive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eva's voice shook. I love you too. I tried not to. Tried to keep it business. But you, her voice cracked. You saw me when I was invisible. You chose me when no one else would. You fought for my mother's memory like it was your own. How could I not love you? Dominic pressed his forehead against hers. The contract. Forget the contract. I don't want a business arrangement anymore. What do you want? You, real, no fake marriage, no 6-month timeline, just us. He pulled back, studied her face, looking for doubt, finding none. Then let's do it properly. Date, court, build something real that isn't based on revenge or strategy or Eleanor's manipulation. Eva smiled, first real smile in weeks. I'd like that. They sat in the car until dawn started breaking, talking, planning, imagining a future that wasn't mapped out in contract terms and revenge plots. The war was over. Real life was beginning. 6 months after the Thornwood Ball scandal, Eva walked through Ashford Industries' glass tower like she owned the place. Because technically she did. VP of Community Relations, corner office on the 15th floor, salary that made her dizzy. Respect from people who'd once looked through her like she was invisible. The low-income housing proposal sat on her desk. Dominic had given her carte blanche to develop programs that actually helped Charleston's working poor. People like her mother, people like she'd been before Dominic chose her in that country club corridor. She was reviewing architectural plans when her assistant knocked. "Mrs. Ashford, your brother's here." Silas entered, looking healthy, clean, sober in ways that went beyond just not drinking. He wore a suit not designer, but nice, professional, the suit of a man who worked for his living and took pride in it. "Hey, Evie," he hugged her, "came to show you the quarterly reports. Ashford Industries' charitable giving is up 40%. We're actually making a difference." Silas worked in accounting now. Dominic had hired him 6 months ago with strict conditions: prove yourself, stay sober, earn your position. Silas had done all three. He'd been clean for 183 days. Eva counted every one. "You're doing good work," she said. "We both are." He gestured at her office. The view, the evidence of how far they'd climbed. Mom would be proud. Words lodged in Eva's throat. Yeah, she would be. After Silas left, Eva stood at her window looking out at Charleston, the city that had chewed her up and spit her out and then impossibly given her a second chance. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dominic Garden. "Sunset. Dress nice." Eva smiled. 6 months of dating. 6 months of learning each other outside the pressure of Eleanor's war and contract terms and fake marriage. 6 months of discovering that what they'd built under fire was even stronger in peace. She left work early, drove to Ashford Manor home, now really home, not a borrowed castle where she was playing a role, changed into a sundress, found Dominic in the garden where wisteria bloomed purple and sweet. He stood by the fountain wearing jeans and a button-down, casual, relaxed, so different from the cold, scarred stranger who'd pulled her to her feet in champagne and blood. "Hey," she said. "Hey yourself." He pulled her close, kissed her the way he'd been kissing her for 6 months, like she was precious, like she was chosen, like she was loved. When they broke apart, he was holding something. Divorce papers. Eva's heart stopped. 6 months ago, I asked you to fake marry me, offered you a contract, used you as a weapon against Eleanor. Dominic's voice was steady. That contract expires today. He handed her the papers. She saw her signature from 6 months ago, saw the terms they'd negotiated, saw the timeline that had just run out. Then he knelt. In the garden where wisteria bloomed and sunset painted everything gold, Dominic Ashford knelt in front of her and held out a ring. The sapphire, his mother's ring. Deep blue, surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum, worn smooth by generations of Ashford women. The ring he'd promised her that first night, the real one, not a placeholder. 6 months ago, I offered you a fake marriage. Today, I'm asking for a real one. Marry me, Eva. Not because of Eleanor or revenge or strategy. Marry me because I love you and I want to spend my life with you. Marry me because you are the strongest person I know and I want to be strong with you. Marry me because when I imagine my future, you're in every single moment. Eva's fingers trembled. Tears blurred her vision. The divorce papers, end the fake marriage, sign them. Then say yes to a real proposal, a real engagement, a real wedding where we choose each other not because we have to, but because we want to. Eva took the papers, signed without reading, let the contract that had brought them together fall away. Then she looked at the man kneeling in front of her, the man who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd fought for her mother's memory, who'd loved her through war and victory and every moment since. Yes, I'll marry you for real this time. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, kissed her while the sun set over Charleston and wisteria bloomed and everything that had been broken started to heal. 3 months later, they married for real, not in a rushed ceremony with a nervous justice of the peace, not in Eleanor's study with contracts and strategy and revenge, but in the garden at Ashford Manor, surrounded by friends and family and people who'd watched them fight their way to happiness. Mrs. Thornton came, brought half of Charleston's old guard. Isla was maid of honor. Silas walked Eva down an aisle lined with white roses. 200 guests watched them exchange vows they'd written themselves. I choose you, Dominic said. Every day, forever. I choose you back, Eva answered. They kissed as husband and wife really married, now truly joined, no contracts or timelines or revenge plots. Just two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful from the wreckage. Among the guests in the back row sat a woman in black, silver-haired, elegant, diminished. Eleanor Ashford had been allowed to attend on supervised release while awaiting trial. She sat alone, no allies, no power. Just an old woman watching her grandson marry the woman she tried to destroy. As Eva and Dominic walked back down the aisle, Eleanor caught Eva's eye, held it. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. You won. I lost. Life goes on. Eva inclined her head, the smallest nod. Then she turned away and walked into her future with the man she loved. Eleanor sat until the ceremony ended, until the last guest filed out toward the reception. Then she pulled out the invitation that had come 3 weeks ago. Heavy cardstock, elegant calligraphy. At the bottom, handwritten, "Thank you for teaching me that I'm stronger than I knew." Eva, Eleanor traced those words with one finger. Then she pulled out a pen, wrote one word on the RSVP card that had accompanied the invitation. Congratulations. She left it on her chair and walked away. Out of the garden, out of their story, into whatever came next for a woman who'd lost everything to the girl she'd underestimated. The reception lasted until dawn. Dancing, champagne, joy that was earned and real and untainted by anything except love. Eva danced with Dominic under lights strung through oak trees. Danced with Silas, who was sober and smiling and building a life worth living. Danced with Isla, who was applying to law school and planning to fight for people like Eva, the invisible ones, the servants, the overlooked. Near midnight, Eva slipped away to the garden's edge, stood where she could see the party but not be part of it. Just for a moment, just to breathe. She thought of her mother, Sarah Winters, who died believing her daughter would never escape poverty, never know safety, never experience the kind of love that didn't come with conditions. "I made it, Mom," Eva whispered to the stars. "I survived, and I'm going to make sure other people survive too." She pulled out her phone, opened the proposal she'd been working on for months, the Winters Foundation named for her mother. Dedicated to helping domestic workers, companions, anyone trapped in servitude disguised as charity. Legal aid, job training, safe houses, everything Eva had needed and never had. Dominic found her there, wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about? The future, what we're going to build, who we're going to help." "Tell me." So she did. Told him about the foundation, the plans, the women she wanted to save the way she'd been saved. He listened. Then he pulled out his phone, made one call. When he hung up, he was smiling. "Ashford Industries will match whatever you raise. Dollar for dollar, every grant, every program. We'll build this together." Eva turned in his arms, kissed him, tasted champagne and promises and the future they were creating. "I love you. I love you back." And they stood in the garden until the party wound down, until the last guests left, until it was just the two of them and the stars and the knowledge that they'd survived the war and won something better than victory. They'd won each other. The one no one chose had chosen herself, had chosen strength over surrender, had chosen love over fear, and in choosing had won everything.